United States black metal certainly has come a long way, and thanks to the Slay Cancer Streamathon that's been going on right here in the Cover Killer Nation channel, we had the opportunity to revisit an old friend from back in 2001. That album being Tara by the band Absu. And this is certainly an album that has been seen by many as extremely influential, not only for the United States black metal community, but potentially for black metal as a whole. But it's because principally of its thrash metal stylings that are infused alongside the black metal. Something that feels like it should be kind of obvious a little bit, considering part of the black metal style does involve a lot of aggressive riffing. However, it's the way in which it's constructed and showcased and sort of packaged and delivered, not only on this album, but in other albums within Absu's discography that really do showcase why Tara is extremely important. What's cool about this is also the story that's kind of behind it as well, one that you should certainly explore on your own. But this album by itself begins with not the aggressiveness of black metal, either that or intermingled with the aggressive ripping of thrash metal. Instead, it starts with bagpipes. And really the transition between the bagpipes first and title track Tara to the second track, which fully envelops you within the thrash and the black metal stylings of Absu, is almost kind of comical a little bit. It's almost like a mourning epitaph that then is launched into the story, and then at the end of this album we revisit that, kind of bringing the story full circle. Now, are you necessarily going to be blown away by the variety that is exhibited on this album? No, not necessarily. Instead, this is very much a direct assault on your ears, and really the only track that showcases a lot of differential from that is the second to last cut. And based off of that, you may think that this is an album that doesn't have a heck of a lot to offer, since it does seem to stay very monochrome. However, the concept in 2001 of having thrash and black metal handshake so nicely and handsomely on an American black metal album was kind of an absurd notion, an idea that felt like it would only work in theory and really in exhibition would perhaps be fallen a bit flat. However, Absu is a group that was able to combine these efforts and may have just been the perfect group at the time to exhibit the ability that this unique brand of heavy metal was able to sort of transfix upon the world. And doing so also is able to launch a very aggressive and sort of interesting conceptual release that keeps you involved throughout the entirety of it. Now, I mentioned that the second to last song on this album goes a little bit above and beyond the call of duty every once in a while. Well, remember the fact that thrash metal does encourage a lot more than just the black metal style vocals. In fact, it's not something that you heard very often in thrash in the 1980s after all. Sometimes you would get some high shrieks, some yells, some screams, or perhaps some clean singing that even would emulate some of the other heavy metal heroes of that time frame, including the new wave of British heavy metal. That's exactly what you get on this song. This is one that combines a lot of the elements that you'd heard throughout the entire rest of the album, but then also adds some Dio-style singing, either that or just some high-pitched King Diamond-esque shrieks in order to add a little bit of depth and oomph to not only this song, but also, constructively speaking, to this album as well. You can see this as the epic final part of the concept that is embroidered within, one in which, like I said, you should certainly research about on your own, and it does bring to a conclusion this story in a very epic manner. It gives this an extra feeling of longevity and also an extra feeling of importance, almost as though you are witnessing the final moments of somebody's existence. Either that or the conflict is about to be resolved. Overall, Absu's legacy is not only going to be based around Tara's influence. It's not going to be based around how solid of an album Tara is, because from really first to last track, it's one that maintains its consistency and never takes its foot off of the accelerator. But it's also in the fact that Absu, as mentioned previously, felt like the perfect band for the job. That they had the natural style already fashioned within their own unique sound, and because of that, it felt like a very natural progression for the black metal genre, and it felt like something that the United States side of black metal could maybe brag about a little bit. It was something that brought a new facet or a new idea to the table that could be fashioned and spoken about the same way as people were going to be talking about Agalloch very soon for their album The Mantle. Just another little aspect, another little twinge, another little idea that had been kind of worked to perfection, as opposed to just being running theories that had some grandfathered, bands that were able to maybe start the idea, but not necessarily perfect it. Terra really does in many ways still feel like Absu's masterpiece, even though they've had many albums ever since then. This is the one that is oftentimes channeled sort of back to, and it's just because it has this long memory to it whenever you leave this album. You can definitely tell the Cornerstone influence, and you can also see where a lot of the material that followed kind of got some of its basis from. Not necessarily in a linear story fashion, but instead in the way in which the sound is constructed, the way in which they started to go about writing a little bit afterward. They tried to distance themselves from Tara a little bit here and there, but in reality embrace the sound that was so natural to them. And that's why Absu continues to be a band that today feels like it has a lot of relevance and a lot of power. If I were to give anybody advice today, it would be to give Tara by Absu a shot, if you haven't already, and if this is already an album that you tend to really enjoy, then it's one that should certainly be revisited today. And after you do so, talk about it in the comments below. Let me know what you like so much about this disc, or if you're hearing it for the first time, let me know your opinion about it. I'm Cover Killer Nation, and I hope you guys will come out to one of the last days of the Slay Cancer Streamathon, which will be taking place next week, the last week of September. Aside from that, I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.